Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Representatives from England's Avon and Somerset police say that a 47-year-old man has been sentenced to prison time this week following a recent incident in which he led officers on a reckless and dangerous car chase that lasted for nearly half an hour. The chase began shortly after 12:30 p.m. on September 2nd when officers in the city of Bristol attempted to conduct a traffic stop on Brian Smith. The 47-year-old, who is described as being of no fixed address, was behind the wheel of a stolen blue Volkswagen. The vehicle was also equipped with fraudulent license plates. However, instead of pulling over, Smith took off when approached by police. This prompted a pursuit, with several officers following him as he began to weave in and out of traffic, blow through red lights, and drive on the wrong side of the road, at times reaching speeds of up to 80 miles per hour in a 30 zone. As you can see, Smith's antics were on full display in dashcam video released by Avon and Somerset police this week. The footage was accompanied by additional video from police helicopters that were also deployed and following overhead during the incident. While police made several attempts to stop Smith during the 27-minute-long chase, it wasn't until he found himself wedged between two cars in the city's fish ponds area that the whole thing finally came to an end. After accelerating forward in an attempt to squeeze past the vehicles, Smith instead got himself trapped, allowing authorities to move in. The dashcam video ends with officers smashing the windows of the stolen Volkswagen and tasering Smith, who was then taken into custody. During a recent court appearance, Smith pleaded guilty to a number of offenses, including driving while disqualified, driving without insurance, failing to provide a specimen for analysis, and dangerous driving. This week, he was sentenced to 16 months in prison and was disqualified from driving for a further 10 years and 8 months. Speaking about the situation afterwards, one of the investigators on the case had this to say, quote, "Smith's driving was amongst the most reckless and exceedingly dangerous I have ever seen, and this sentence reflects that. Thanks to the skill of officers and the support of the police helicopter, he was stopped without any person coming to harm." In one of the most brazen daylight heists in modern history, a gang of masked thieves disguised as construction workers stormed Paris's Louvre Museum this week, making off with millions of dollars worth of France's crown jewels, a dramatic crime that all unfolded in less than 10 minutes. The heist took place on Sunday, October 19th, just after 9:30 a.m., barely half an hour after the world-famous museum opened its doors to the public. According to investigators, 4 robbers arrived on scooters and used a mechanical lift to scale a balcony of the Galerie d'Apollon, the section of the museum that houses some of France's most treasured jewels. After cutting their way through the exterior of the building, 2 of the masked men used gas-powered chainsaws to cut open display cases while stunned visitors and museum staff watched in disbelief. Footage from the scene shows one of the thieves, wearing a yellow reflective vest and a black hoodie, calmly cutting through a glass case containing priceless jewels, just 270 yards from the Mona Lisa. The robbers threatened security guards but did not injure anyone. French culture minister Rachida Dati later described the crew as, quote, "calm, professional, and experienced," saying their level of preparation suggested they were members of an organized criminal network. By 9:40 a.m., the thieves had fled the scene, escaping through the same window and riding away on scooters parked along the River Seine. They left behind an array of tools, including a concrete saw, angle grinders, gloves, gasoline, and a yellow safety vest, along with one of the stolen artifacts, an emerald-studded crown that once belonged to Empress Eugénie, wife of Napoleon III. The artifact was found shattered outside the museum, apparently dropped by the thieves during their hasty getaway. In total, 9 historic pieces of jewelry were stolen, including a diamond and emerald necklace given by Emperor Napoleon to his wife, Marie-Louise, and a diamond and sapphire tiara once worn by Queen Marie-Amélie. Among the missing items are a bodice bow made of more than 2,600 diamonds, a sapphire necklace and earrings, and several pieces tied to Napoleon's royal family. Though the collection is considered priceless by historians, the estimated cash value of the haul is more than 88 million euros, or about $102 million USD. Remarkably, one of the museum's most famous treasures, the 140-carat Regent diamond, was left untouched. Thousands of visitors were evacuated as police rushed to secure the museum. Forensic teams examined the scene, collecting fingerprints and DNA samples from a broken window on the south side of the building where construction work had been underway. The Louvre was closed for 2 days as the investigation began, and its director has since been ordered to appear before the French Senate's Culture Committee to answer for security failures. French Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin admitted that the theft exposed major vulnerabilities, saying, quote, "We have failed, since people were able to park a furniture hoist in the middle of Paris and grab priceless jewels." A preliminary audit later revealed that 1 in 3 rooms in the museum's wing where the heist occurred had no surveillance cameras. Authorities are pursuing at least 4 main suspects believed to be part of an organized crime ring. Hundreds of officers are working on the manhunt, analyzing CCTV footage from the museum and surrounding streets. President Emmanuel Macron condemned the theft as, quote, "an attack on a heritage that we cherish because it is part of our history," vowing that the jewels and the thieves would be found. However, experts warn the clock is ticking. Art recovery specialists told news outlets that unless the culprits are caught within 48 hours, the jewels will likely be dismantled, melted down, or smuggled abroad. This isn't the first time the Louvre's crown jewels have been targeted. The same gallery was robbed back in 1976 when thieves stole a ceremonial sword belonging to King Charles X, a relic that has never been recovered. As of this week, the Louvre remains under tight security and temporarily closed, with French authorities investigating the robbery as a high-level act of organized crime. Chilling security footage has emerged this week of a brazen attack on the streets of one of Australia's largest cities, nearly 2 weeks after a sushi chef was the victim of a terrifying broad daylight stabbing attack. The assault happened just before 7:40 a.m. on Wednesday, October 2nd, near the intersection of Little Bourke and Spencer Streets in Melbourne's central business district. According to police, 36-year-old Int'l, known to friends and co-workers as Juan, was on her way to work at a sushi shop inside Southern Cross Station when a stranger ran up behind her, tapped her on the shoulder, and plunged a knife into her chest. Authorities say that the attacker, 32-year-old Loren Durrell, fled the scene immediately after, but was arrested within 90 minutes. Durrell, who was reportedly living at a nearby homeless shelter, was charged with intentionally causing injury and committing an offense while on bail. Police recovered the weapon allegedly used in the attack shortly after her arrest. Security footage shows Juan clutching her chest and collapsing onto the pavement as bystanders rush to help. One woman can be seen removing her coat and pressing it against Juan's wound to stop the bleeding. These quick actions are being credited with saving her life. Juan was rushed to Royal Melbourne Hospital, where doctors discovered the stab wound had punctured her lung. She underwent emergency surgery and spent 3 days in the hospital before being released. Writing in Mandarin on social media, Juan later thanked the, quote, "quick actions of the Good Samaritan who gave her precious time to survive." Now recovering at home, Juan says she is still haunted by the attack. In a statement to local media, she said in part, quote, "I'm still relying on painkillers to manage the pain, and I'm still recovering both physically and mentally. I'm too scared to leave my house alone. My familiar living environment no longer gives me the comfort I once had." Her sister Ivana told 7 News that Juan is always on guard and, quote, "can't stand people walking behind her anymore." Juan has since moved out of her neighborhood and says she's uncertain about her future, as her job requires her to stand for long hours. She described ongoing pain, difficulty eating, and anxiety about returning to work, stating, quote, "It's really scary to have no income and no expenses, but still have to run around. I can't help but worry about what to do next. All I can do is recover step by step." Authorities confirmed that Loren Durrell was on bail for attempted theft at the time of the incident and was living in a nearby state-funded housing facility. The shelter has reportedly requested that she not be allowed to return once released. Durrell is expected to appear in court on October 21st to apply for bail. Victoria Premier Jacinta Allen condemned the sickening attack, saying, quote, "No one who commits such a brazen, violent act on our streets should be on our streets." The city of Melbourne has since announced plans to install 100 additional CCTV cameras across the city and to deploy 11 more community protection officers. However, residents and witnesses say they're still shaken by the violence. One woman who interrupted a press conference held by Melbourne's mayor said, quote, "It's very frightening at night. To get to Coles on Elizabeth Street, it's not safe. Despite assurances from some officials that Melbourne remains one of the world's safest cities, one story has sparked renewed debate about homelessness, mental health, and public safety in Australia's urban centres. For Juan, though, the focus remains on healing. In a message to her supporters, she wrote, quote, "Life is fragile, but by supporting each other, we can make this world a safer place. Stay safe, everyone." The residents of a city in northern Argentina have been left in shock after police uncovered a horrific case of murder and deception involving a 20-year-old man who allegedly killed his mother, lived with her decomposing body for more than 2 weeks, and later died himself after jumping from a bridge. The grim discovery began around 6 p.m. on Tuesday, October 14th, when neighbors in the El Chingo neighborhood of San Salvador de Jujuy reported smoke coming from a house on Avenida de Mayo, near the junction of Provincial Route 8 and National Route 9. Fire crews and police rushed to the scene, where witnesses said they saw one of the homeowner's sons fleeing the residence as neighbors tried to put out the flames. Moments later, that same young man, driving a gray Ford Focus, crashed into the railing of the nearby San Martin Bridge. Witnesses told police the car was still in motion when he jumped out, ran to the side of the bridge, and threw himself into the river below. Emergency responders pulled him from the water still alive and rushed him to a local hospital where he was placed in intensive care. However, he was pronounced dead early the next morning. Inside the burned home, meanwhile, investigators found the body of the man's mother, 60-year-old Maria Isabel, in an advanced state of decomposition. Her remains were discovered wrapped in a blanket in an inner courtyard. Authorities later confirmed that Maria Isabel had been stabbed 14 times in the chest, neck, and abdomen. Defensive wounds on her arms indicated she had tried to fight back during the attack. According to forensic analysis, Maria Isabel had been killed on or around September 27th, over 2 weeks before the fire and her son's fatal leap. Investigators believe the suspect remained in the home with her body during that time before attempting to cover up the crime by setting fire to the house. Making the case even stranger is that, according to police, there were no prior reports of violence or abuse between the mother and her son, and neighbors had never seen or heard any signs of conflict. The lead prosecutor on the case told local media, quote, "There were no previous complaints nor any medical records indicating aggression. The neighbors are disoriented because there was never any sign of problems between them." Residents described Maria Isabel as a kind, hard-working woman devoted to her 4 children. One neighbor told reporters, quote, "She was a good mother, a good person. Her oldest children are engineers who live in Neuquén and Buenos Aires. She raised them all by herself with her work." Police have seized several items from the home, including cell phones, a computer, and the Ford Focus used in the attempted escape, all of which are being examined as part of the ongoing investigation to determine the motive behind the killing. The shocking case has gripped the province of Jujuy, leaving the community struggling to understand how a young man with no known history of violence could commit such an act and live alongside his mother's body for weeks before the tragedy came to light. Authorities in Japan's Saitama Prefecture say that a 22-year-old former caregiver has been arrested after 2 elderly women were murdered inside a nursing home after they were stabbed and strangled to death in their beds. Police say the suspect, Toya Komura, broke into the nursing home in question, located in the city of Tsurugashima, in the early morning hours of October 15th. After gaining access to the facility, where he had previously worked shortly after 2 a.m., it's alleged that he fatally attacked 2 female residents, later identified as 89-year-old Toshiko Kobayashi and 89-year-old Akiko Ue. Investigators say Komura was able to get into the nursing home because the 4-digit code used to unlock the entrance had not been changed since he was last employed there more than a year ago, in July of 2024. Authorities believe Komura rode a bicycle roughly 14 miles from his home in Kumagaya to the nursing home, bringing with him a knife purchased in advance. He reportedly wore a hood, mask, and gloves and told police he, quote, entered the facility with the intent to kill. A lone night shift worker discovered the victims hours later. Toshiko was on the 5th floor, while Akiko was on the 4th. Both women were lying face up on their beds with severe wounds. Though the women had each been stabbed multiple times, it's now believed they actually died from asphyxiation due to neck compression. Security footage showed a masked figure leaving the building around 3:30 a.m. Police tracked Kimura down later that morning, detaining him about 250 yards from the home. A blood-stained blade and an item used to strangle the victims were recovered from a bag he was carrying, and his bicycle was found nearby. According to police, Kimura admitted to killing both women, though bizarrely claimed he held no grudge against them. During interviews, he told investigators, quote, "There was no doubt that I stabbed and killed her." This comment was reportedly made in reference to Toshiko specifically, though authorities say Kimura confessed to Akiko's murder as well. Investigators are still working to determine a motive, but say the level of planning suggests premeditation. Other residents and their families, meanwhile, have been left stunned. One woman, whose elderly brother lives at the home, told reporters, quote, "The residents and staff were always friendly. I thought it was a safe place." Another neighbor, who witnessed emergency responders performing CPR through a window, said the scene was, quote, "unimaginable for such a quiet town." Kimura has been charged with 2 counts of murder and remains in custody as prosecutors in Saitama continue their investigation. A routine call about an unpaid taxi fare in northern Taiwan led police to an unexpected discovery last week when officers realized the woman they arrested was actually a man who had been on the run for 6 years. Authorities say the suspect, a 33-year-old man by the last name of Yang, was detained early Thursday morning, October 16th, in New Taipei's Damsui district after allegedly skipping out on a taxi fare of 700 New Taiwan dollars, or roughly $23 US. According to police, the cab driver reported that his passenger, who appeared to be a woman, said that she didn't have cash to pay the fare and left to retrieve money from her house, but never came back. Officers arrived a short time later and found Yang nearby. They noted that the suspect was dressed in leggings and flats, spoke in a soft voice, and initially claimed to be female. When asked for identification, Yang reportedly handed officers an ID card, which he said belonged to his boyfriend. Police also said he wore a bra padded with tissue paper and displayed distinctly feminine mannerisms. However, after repeated questioning, Yang was unable to provide verifiable information, and he was taken into custody about 40 minutes later for failing to pay the fare. It was only after a fingerprint check at the station that police uncovered the truth. The suspect was not a woman, but a man wanted by police in Yilan County for multiple offenses, including fraud and public endangerment. Investigators believe Yang had been living under a female identity for years to avoid arrest, working part-time jobs at restaurants in Taipei and New Taipei City while disguising himself in women's clothing. Following his arrest, Yang was transferred to the Yilan District Prosecutor's Office for further investigation. Police later said the strange case serves as a reminder of how even a minor incident, in this case a taxi fare dispute, can sometimes unravel far deeper mysteries hiding in plain sight. Authorities in the Malaysian state of Penang say that they have arrested 2 men this week following the heinous murders of a mother and her adopted daughter inside their own home. The disturbing situation was uncovered at around 7:30 p.m. on October 18th, when a 57-year-old security guard returned to the home where he lived with his wife and stepdaughter in Jujuy, a suburb in the city of Seberang, Perai. Moments after walking through the front door, neighbors were alerted by loud noises as the man began yelling and screaming for help. According to reports, the 57-year-old entered the 2-story home to find his wife, 51-year-old Saraya Che-hin, dead in the kitchen. The full extent of her injuries have not been released. However, what we do know is that she was the victim of a vicious attack, one that left her head nearly severed from her body. Upstairs, a similarly gruesome scene was quickly discovered. Saraya's 11-year-old niece, who she'd adopted and raised from the time she was a baby, was lying face down and covered in blood. Sadly, she was also dead. While very few details have so far been released about the case, police have now announced the arrests of 2 men, both of whom are said to be in their 40s. Neither of the men's names have currently been released. However, it's said that one is Malaysian and the other is a foreign national. It's believed the men were both acquainted with Saraya, and police have also revealed that a weapon was recovered from the back of the house where the double murder took place. As for the motive behind the crime, that still appears to be a mystery. While Saraya's 57-year-old husband was detained by police following the incident, most local news outlets have stated that this was so he could assist with the investigation. Reports contradict each other as to the exact details here, with some claiming that police have said he is not a suspect, while others say that this has not been confirmed either way. However, what is clear is that the awful crime has come as a huge shock to the local community. Friends, neighbors, and family members say that the victims were known to be quiet and mostly kept to themselves. Soraya worked as a vendor selling snacks at a local canteen, and is not known to have had any problems with other locals in the area. In fact, the main thing that has been reported about her is that she was a loving mother. In addition to her niece, she had also adopted another child and had a son from a previous marriage. That son, 28-year-old Mohd Hafifi Hassan, is now asking the public not to spread rumors and baselessly speculate about the murders of his mother and sister. In an emotional statement to the media after the killings, he said in part, quote, "Let the police carry out their investigations. If anyone has information, please lodge a report at the nearest police station instead of circulating it online." Mohd also said that despite his terrible grief, he is trying his best to honor his mother's memory by following the advice she gave to him in their final conversation just days before the tragedy. He told reporters, quote, "My mother reminded me to be a good son, never to harm others, even if people wrong us. I will hold on to her words forever." At the time of this recording, police are continuing their investigation and working to unravel the motive behind the horrifying crime. The situation is still developing. Authorities in Italy are investigating a horrifying case this week after a well-known model and reality TV personality was allegedly stabbed to death by her boyfriend during a violent attack on her apartment balcony. The whole thing unfolded at around 10 p.m. on Tuesday, October 14th, at a top-floor apartment in the Gorla neighborhood of Milan. According to police, 29-year-old Pamela Giannini had been arguing with her boyfriend, 52-year-old Gianluca Sanchin, when the confrontation escalated to violence. Neighbors told investigators they heard Pamela screaming for help moments before the attack. When officers arrived at the scene, a neighbor on a nearby balcony shouted to get their attention and pointed them towards the apartment. Police broke down the door just as Sanchin was finishing the vicious assault. Tragically, it was already too late though. Pamela had been stabbed 24 times across her neck, chest, back, arms, and hands. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities say Sanchin then turned the knife on himself, slashing his own neck twice in an apparent attempt to take his own life. He was rushed to a nearby hospital in critical condition, but has since been stabilized. He is now under police guard and is facing charges of murder aggravated by stalking, premeditation, and femicide, a term used in Italy to classify killings motivated by domestic violence or gender-based hatred. Neighbors told local media that they tried to break into the apartment after hearing Pamela's cries, but they couldn't reach her in time. Several witnesses from an adjacent building also said that they saw the man storm into the apartment just before the incident. Friends and relatives told investigators that Pamela had been trying to end her relationship with Sanchin for months. One friend described the relationship as toxic, saying Pamela had become afraid of him after repeated arguments and threats. Prosecutors have since confirmed that Pamela was the victim of stalking and prior domestic abuse. Investigators believe that Sanchin used a spare key he had secretly copied weeks earlier to enter Pamela's apartment that night. Reports also indicate that Pamela had been on the phone with an ex-boyfriend when she realized Sanchin was inside her home. That man immediately called police, while Pamela reportedly told Sanchin that the officers knocking at the door were just a food delivery. Moments later, Sanchin dragged her onto the terrace and began the fatal attack. Pamela Giannini was a well-known figure in Italian's fashion and entertainment world. She modeled for luxury brands in Milan, co-founded the swimwear company Skilux, and ran a high-end real estate business. She had also appeared on the Italian reality dating series The Island of Adam and Eve, which featured contestants participating nude. On social media, she frequently shared images from fashion events, vacations, and red carpet appearances at the Venice Film Festival. Sanchin, a wealthy businessman from northern Italy, has a controversial history. He was previously arrested in 2010 during a financial police operation that uncovered a tax fraud scheme involving selling luxury cars at artificially low prices and evading taxes. It's unclear whether he was ever convicted in that case. At the time of this recording, Gianluca Sanchin remains hospitalized under police supervision. Prosecutors say he will face trial for Pamela's murder once he recovers. Hey there. Before you take off, we'd just like to take a second and say that we really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Luke and I are so grateful for our incredible Crime Zone community, so thank you for being a part of it. If you want to help Crime Zone continue to grow, one of the easiest things you can do is leave a like on this video and consider subscribing. Be sure to hit that notification bell as well and select all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to support the channel, there are a couple of options. We've got a thriving community over on Patreon, where you can get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. Head over to patreon.com/crimezone to learn more and to meet some of the awesome people whose names are currently on screen. If that isn't your thing, we've also now launched channel memberships so you can join directly here on YouTube. Channel members get a lot of the same perks as on Patreon, including extra content, without the added hassle of having to go off-platform. Now, that being said, we know times are tough and that not everyone is able to support financially. Regardless of your situation though, we want you to know that we truly appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, and we hope to see you soon.